So, you want dynamite darts content? Well, Alex Moss and Burton DeWitt have you covered. Love these guys. For bullseyes, bounce-outs, and darting brilliance, keep it right here. You are listening to the weekly Dartscast. Now, I'm Canadian and often get asked how Canadians call out a maximum, a 180? Well, it sounds something like this. 100, eh? T.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast. I'm Alex Moss and joining me as always, darts statistician and the number one tipster on this show, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, although I don't think I'm doing as well as Gerwyn Price is right now. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yes, there's only one place to start, isn't there? We have a new PDC World Champion. We have a new PDC number one as well. It's been a long time since we can say that. Gerwyn Price replacing Michael van Gerwen as the world number one and winning his first world title, a 7-3 win against Gary Anderson in the final. We're talking only a few moments after that final at Alexandra Palace, and what a deserving winner he is. Can Gezi now kick on and make this a real changing of the guard at the top of the game?
There's no reason why he can't. I don't want to get anywhere near saying can he match Michael van Gerwen as 7 years as the world number one, because that is a very, very long time. And to put in perspective how dominant Michael van Gerwen was for the majority of this time period, there was back-to-back years where Gary Anderson won the world title, and he still didn't really get all that close to being world number one, despite having two world championships on that. Granted, it wasn't £500,000 yet like it is now, but it was still a sizable chunk of cash. And Michael van Gerwen was still the clear-cut number one. And he remained that up until now. And Gerwyn Price, I mean, what a year he's had. Winning the World Grand Prix, winning the World Championship, winning the World Cup, which doesn't count on the rankings. But as I said in our preview show, those are the three set play events. If you add in 4 Players' Championship finals, Players' Championship events, and a Euro Tour title, reaching the final of the UK Open, winning the World Series as well. What a year he has had, and he's only gotten better as it went along. You go back a couple months ago, and I guess we said similar about Michael van Gerwen. Gerwyn Price wasn't yet back to his best, but he was still playing pretty darn well. He lifted his game when it mattered, and now he knows he can cross the line, and there aren't really any doubts left in his head. He'll be number one, most likely at least until November, when he has to defend championship money from 2 years ago in the Grand Slam of Darts. But he might even be longer than that, heading into the World Championships and beyond. He has the ability to kick on from here and be the world number one, at least for a few years, at least until he's defending this prize money in 2 years. And there's no reason to think he won't win one of the next two as well, and either preemptively defend the money or defend it in 24 months' time. I think he has the game and the drive right now to remain world number one for a few years and to remain the figurehead of the game for a few years. Van Gerwen will come back at him. Peter Wright could easily become the world number one if he has a strong start to the season. And there's other players clamoring at the bits for their push. You can't get past Dirk van Dijvenbode, who only has 1 year on his ranking, but is really emerged as a talent in the game. But I think Gerwyn Price is now the figurehead, and I think he can and will kick on and hold this title at least until he's defending this prize money 2 years from now. And I would not be surprised if it's a couple of years longer than that.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time, and I guess when we look back at 2020, we're now into the first few days of 2021, but we look back at last year and it was a year for darts that we'll never forget. All the different winners, all the surprise results, people winning big titles that we never predicted, and we've kicked off 2021 with a new world champion, Gerwyn Price, the first Welshman to win the title and the first player to come through Q School to win the World Championship. And the guys backstage who work behind the scenes for the PDC, setting everything up like Q School, the Challenge Tour, of course. It was only a couple of 3 years ago we saw Rob Cross come through the Riley's UK Open qualifiers, then the Challenge Tour, get on the tour and then win the World Championships. You've got 2 or 3 different routes there for people to come through the system to get onto the tour and then become the world champion, win the biggest prize there is in this sport. It shows you that the system works, and it shows any dart player out there that these things can happen. You can achieve those big dreams if you do put the hard work in. And you've got to say Gerwyn Price has put the hard work in, because it's been 7 years, it'll be 7 years in a few weeks that he went into Q School for the first time, won his tour card, and since then he's done a lot of grafting, a lot of hours behind the scenes, even in his early days, he was playing in local events, he was playing the Champion of Champions, and he's just continued to progress, win titles on the floor, win European tours, the Grand Slam a couple of times. But this year, it's kind of felt like he could be the next world number one. We spoke about it on the show a few months ago. Peter Wright was in the conversation as well, especially heading into this World Championship. Michael van Gerwen, the pressure was on him. He had to perform well. Gerwyn Price went into it knowing that if he won the title, he'd be world number one, and that's a lot of pressure as well. And you kind of saw that in the final as well, didn't you? When it got to that match start, it took him his 12th match start to get over the line and win 7-3. But I guess a lot of people remember the end of the final because of all the drama at the end of all those mismatched starts. But you look at the spell that he had during that final to get himself to 5-1, the 136 average in one of the sets, 120 average in another one. And his doubles percentage for a lot of that game was outstanding. And yes, he is the world number one. He's got a little bit of a gap now ahead of Michael van Gerwen and Peter Wright. I think it's around 200 to 300,000 pounds. Can he do 7 years in a row? I think that's going to be a hard one. I think we're going to see the world number one switch a few times, maybe towards the second half of this year. Of course, we're not quite sure what's going to happen with the calendar yet, but you're going to see Michael van Gerwen. He's not number one anymore for the first time since end of 2013. We'll see what happens with him now if he can come back. But Gerwyn Price fully deserved to be the world champion and fully deserved to be the new world number one.
Now, was not a third world title for Gary Anderson, a third runner-up to go along with his 2 back-to-back world titles, but it was a resurrection of his career after 2 years plagued with first injury and then inconsistent form. Do you think Gary Anderson, though, is now back to being one of the top 4 players in the world?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think on his day, you've got to say Gary Anderson is one of the best players in the world, but I think you're starting to see maybe a little bit the inconsistency. Even you look at tonight, okay, there would have been hardly any players you'd put on a list that say they could have coped with what Gerwyn Price was throwing at them in that first 5 or 6 sets. But you look at the back end of that game and Price was starting to miss the doubles. Gary Anderson was creating chances and he could have pulled it back. I think he could have pulled it back to 6-4. He missed darts to do that, and then it would have been a very nervy game. Gary Anderson would have had the darts at the start of the 11th set. If he gets it back to 6-5, there's a huge amount of pressure on Gerwyn Price to hold himself together in that 12th set. But it's kind of been the story of Gary Anderson's year, 2020. He's got to the World Match Play final himself. He said that he's not played well or capable of what he can do. Even the Premier League, he performed brilliantly in patches in that, got to the playoffs and mismatched darts to get to the final there. So we could have been talking about a season where Gary Anderson's got to the final of the 2 biggest ranking events and then the biggest non-ranking event there is. And for someone who 2019 was a difficult year for him, pulled out of the Premier League because of injury, hardly saw him at all. And I think he's defending less than £100,000 in 2021. So we are going to see him in that top 8. He has said himself that this year he's going to commit more to the tour. Whether that means we're going to see him play European tour for the first time in a long time, I'm not quite sure. But he said that he's going to be putting in more hours on the practice board. He's going to be linking up with Ryan Searle, who lives quite close to him. And I think you're going to see if those two can get together and practice like that, both of them do well. But yeah, he's back in the top 8, missed out on getting into the top 4 if he'd have won the title. But I think that the signs are good for Gary Anderson going forward. If he can avoid playing Mensah Suljovic as well in TV events, I think that will make him happy as well. It seems like he's got that hunger back as well, hasn't it? Whether that's to do with some of the comments from the Sky team that he overheard that's lit that fuse in him again, I don't know. But he seems like he's fired up again, and he's still got a lot left to give in the game, which is good, because when you see Gary Anderson on TV performing near his best or at his best, it's well worth watching.
Gary Anderson playing the Euro Tour is right alongside the Corey Cadby interview. It's probably the funniest thing ever on this show. But seriously, though, yeah, I don't know. You make some very good points there. In reaching the final, the 2 most important events this past season, he never really looked like his best. But he still managed to make the final. He still managed to lift his game and hit the right shots at the right time. You go back to the World Match Play semifinal against Michael Smith, where the quality was up and down, more down than up for most of the match. But after Michael Smith reeled off, 4 or 5 consecutive legs to get back in it and get it to tie breaks, Gary Anderson threw in the 2 best legs of the match, 2 of the best legs he put in that entire tournament to get over the line. And that shows the quality he has when he needs to perform. If he didn't lift his game there, he was going out to Michael Smith in that semifinal. And who knows? We might be talking about Michael Smith as the world champion right now, because Michael Smith at that point in the year was very close to the breakthrough that has been coming for a very long time from him. And Gary Anderson lifting his game and playing like the Gary Anderson of old, even if it was just for 2 legs, is what kept that from happening. And he did similar, against Dirk van Dijvenbode in the quarterfinals, which was easily Anderson's best match of the tournament. It looked early on that he might get blown out of the water, but he came back in that second set, and then he just did not let van Dijvenbode have a sniff for the rest of the match. Just absolutely brutal performance there to knock out someone who might be the Dutch number 1 in a couple of years, the way things are going. So we've seen flashes from Gary Anderson, but that's all it's been. And the top 3, I think we all agree, are pretty clear-cut. And on his day, Gary Anderson might still be the second best player, but does he still have his day? And where is he when he's not on his day? It's nowhere near number 4. Even when he's just playing like he did this past couple weeks, he was probably not one of the 4 best players in this event, but he got it done at the right times. And I didn't even mention his match against Devin Peterson, which I should have, where, again, coming back from 2 legs down in sets 3 and 4 to finish it off, playing well at those moments when he needed to. But it's tougher to do, especially in leg play, where you can get blown out of the water and there's fewer critical legs. I don't think he's one of the 4 best players in the world right now, but he still has the game and he still has the quality to make major finals and maybe even win another major and a real prestigious major like this of the World Match Play in the next 12 months, next 24 months. But I wouldn't say he's one of the 4 best right now. He's in that next group of 4-6 players.
And now we'll move on to our first guest on this week's show, and it is a player who made the semi-finals of the PDC World Championship for the first time at the weekend, the former champion of the world, Stephen Bunting. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former BDO World Champion and the recent PDC World Championship semi-finalist, Stephen Bunting. Thanks for the time, Stephen. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. Nice to be with you.
Now, first off, you've had a few days back home now after your semi-final at Ali Pali on Saturday. Have you had time to reflect on what has been a hectic last couple of weeks for you?
I've tried to stay away from it, to be honest. I've just obviously got home, played a lot of PlayStation, just relaxed and tried to forget about last week. Obviously, I was disappointed to go out in the semi-finals, but I know I had chances in that game to win that match, and it was a fantastic run that I had, but I've got to keep that up now, keep that form up, and obviously I'm happy to be in the Masters now as well, so it's a quick turnaround. I'm playing the end of the month again instead of playing in a few months' time, so I need to be ready for that.
Winning the Lakeside, the World Masters a couple of times, they're always going to be high on your list of achievements in the game, but 100 grand for getting to the semi-finals at Ali Pali, that equals your biggest payday so far. What does that run that you've had mean to you?
It's massive. It's like I said in my interviews while I was down at Alexandra Palace, that's probably the biggest achievement so far, reaching the semi-finals. When you look at the players that are actually in that tournament, the few names that are on that trophy as well, and obviously you need to play amazing darts to get to that stage. I was happy with my performances. There were certain aspects of a bit of nerves crept in the semi-final, but all in all, I can take a million positives away from that event, and I'm just looking forward now to, obviously that was a great start to the year. Looking forward to kicking on now and pushing myself back into the top 16 in the world.
We'll come back onto the run, but I want to look back first through 2020, and you were, of course, one of the last players that we saw on TV before the first lockdown. You played in the Premier League in Liverpool against Rob Cross and then the Pro Tour that weekend. But that Liverpool Premier League night, we noticed there was a smaller crowd than usual. Leaving that arena that night, did you have a sense that things were going to maybe change soon?
Yeah, no, I've always believed over the last few years, definitely, ever since seeing the sports psychologist and stuff, from threatening really to walk away from that, I love it, to where I'm at now is chalk and cheese, to be honest. I'm loving the game again. I absolutely love the Liverpool Premier League. It sort of gave me that kick up the backside that I needed, and although I didn't get the result that I wanted that night, come away without losing, and I was more worried about the walk-on than playing, obviously, because that was the first time we said we couldn't interact with crowds as well, and obviously what's come after that with COVID and everything, it's been a nightmare, to be honest, but I think the PDC have handled it brilliantly. Obviously, people at home can still get to see quality darts.
Definitely, and a big move for you in the summer as well, deciding to manage yourself after 7 years with John Archer at Nevada, a great partnership that you guys had. What prompted you to go on your own, and how have you found that so far?
I think just the whole situation with the COVID and everything. Obviously, I rang John and spoke to John and Jackie, and I decided that the best thing was to leave their management stable and to go on my own. And I think, obviously, of the results that I've had so far, I think that decision's justified. And I believe that, obviously, I can do my own thing now. I don't need to answer to anybody, and it can only push me on to bigger and better things. And just on the record, I'd like to just wish John and Jackie all the best with everything they decide to do in the future. And like I said, I left on good terms, and that was the way I always wanted it.
You mentioned COVID. You saw it firsthand how the virus can affect your darts at the World Grand Prix. Yourself and Adrian Lewis returning the positive test for the virus before the event started. When you get that knock on the door or the slip of paper under the door, what's your first reaction?
The worst feeling in the world, to be honest. Felt like my whole world fell out. I was sat there, obviously had the test, had no symptoms, feeling great and looking forward to playing in the Grand Prix. And then you get a knock on the door and it's all taken away from you through a pandemic. And yeah, it was hard to take. Obviously, I had to come home and I was sat on a beanbag. Luckily, we have a 3-story house, so I was sat on a beanbag on the 3rd floor, sulking away from everyone. The missus was bringing my food up and leaving her on the step. But yeah, it was a really hard and dark place to be in at the time. And I think, obviously, things happen for a reason. And obviously, having a great run in the world this year and obviously getting that 100,000 back on my ranking, I think, it's all been made possible. And thankfully, even though I had COVID, I had no symptoms, so I didn't suffer too much. Good
to hear. Well, away from the TV, there's not many players that can say they've had a deep run on the floor before the virus, then the Summer Series, Autumn Series and the Winter Series. You had a good run in all 4 of those. How much did you take from those runs that you had during the season?
Definitely. I mean, I always pride myself on being a good TV player and a steady Pro Tour player, but I think I've changed around this last few months. I believe I'm playing better than ever. Even on the floor, you see the consistencies and the averages and stuff is creeping back up. I'm on a lot more 100+ averages, and I just feel I feel part of the team again. I feel part of being at the events and just looking forward to each and every event now, which I've not done really for the last few years with certain struggles that I've had in my life with obviously seeing a sports psychologist and that, but he changed my whole mindset round. And just to be turning up, feeling positive, I'm actually feeling like I can win again, which is a massive part to any dart player's ammunition.
Fast forward to the World Championship that we've just had, and really it was the first time that we've seen you under the behind closed doors on the big stage. Your opponent, Andy Bolton, having that first round game to get used to it. How were you feeling as you walked out for that first game?
Quite nervous, to be honest. Obviously, I'd only had the situation where I played in the Players' Championship finals without the crowd, and obviously the crowd noise bumped in. I was very, very nervous because I know how well Andy Bolton can play, and obviously I think he done really well in the home tour sort of thing as well. So obviously playing without the fans, he was used to that, and he'd already had a game. So I had a lot of thoughts flying around in the back of my head, but I also knew that if I turned up and played my best game, then I had a really good chance. And obviously, the result was a brilliant result. Seems as though it went to the last leg and I banged in the 11 darter. And obviously, testament to him as well. He was sat on 81 there to take it out. So I needed to go out at 11 to win that match.
Yeah, it was one of the best games from the early rounds, and right from your first game, what became a staple of your run, pulling out those big scores, big finishes, big legs in key moments. There was I think you were a set down 2-1 down, you break in 13 in the decider for 1-1, and then as you mentioned the 11 darter on throw in the sudden death leg, that must have given you a lot of confidence coming off the stage after that one.
Definitely, yeah. And then obviously a break into Christmas, so it was a double whammy really. I had a fantastic feeling of winning that game and knowing I was going to be playing after Christmas as well. So obviously even over the Christmas period, I knew then I was going to be on the 29th, so I had a little time over Christmas as well to keep the practice going. We had a lovely Christmas at home, me, the missus and my lad, and I think I headed back down to Alexandra Palace on the 27th, so even though I had that small break, I was still practicing in between and ready for my next match. And I obviously knew it was going to be a tough match.
Against James Wade, and it paid off. 2-0 down, you come back and win 4-2, and then Ryan Searle in the third round, 3-all, 2-0 down in that last set. 3 great legs to come back and win. And I know the World Masters is just more cutthroat, best of 3 legs in a set, but you of course defended it in 2013, the first man to win it without dropping a set. Were some of those experiences what you tapped into to keep fighting no matter what the score was in a set?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the win miles come off the back of when I was with really good form and high confidence. And obviously, it's been no different this year. My confidence has been really high. I've had some great results. I think I took a lot of confidence from the Wade game. 2-0 down, and I dug deep to come back in and get myself back into that game and eventually win it. And yeah, listen, James is a fantastic player, and I was just so happy to get that win. And that gave me the sort of stepping stone to push on further in that tournament and obviously end up in the semi-finals.
And the win against Ryan Searle, that takes you into the quarterfinals for the first time since 2015, that memorable game with Raymond van Barneveld. What was it like coming back after New Year's Eve, the break, and still being involved in the tournament?
Yeah, no, listen, the game against Ryan Searle as well was another cracker. I also knew what to expect off Ryan. I'd watched several of his other games, and I believed I was playing better than him. We had a little bit of a practice a couple of days before in the practice room, and obviously it was when I was playing the Wade game in between, and obviously we knew that was the first time we come eye to eye that tournament, and for someone throwing such heavy darts and such light darts, there was a lot made of it, but yeah, to win that game was brilliant. And then obviously Krzysztof Ratajski, who had not played for a long time, what a player he is, and yeah, I just dug deep against him. I knew there was going to be times where he would dominate, but I thought if I can get that far ahead at the start, I'll have a chance, and I took it.
And you mentioned the heavy darts that Ryan Searle uses, I think 32 grams, and I think you mentioned in one of your interviews you hit a 180 with them. So is there any chance you might go up and use them darts in the future?
No, that was definitely a fluke. I only threw them once, and obviously hit the 180, which was great for me, but no, it was definitely a fluke. And I think it's more of a workout throwing them sort of darts when I'm used to 12 grams than anything else. So yeah, no, I'll stick with me 12 grams. I'm loving the new target darts that I've got out at the minute. Well, they come out I think the end of this month, and they're flying fantastic. I can't say enough good things about Target, because obviously they've sent them, and just the work I'm doing on the practice board, and I can see my averages creeping up into the hundreds again, and I feel incredible with them, and I know they're going to push me into the title.
Well, you mentioned the win against Krzysztof Ratajski. The run continues. We won't be forgetting that 170 finish or the celebration a little while after when you walk off the stage. Later on, we see your good friend Dave Chisnell whitewash Michael van Gogh in 5-0, assuming you were watching that game, of course. But what was going through your head when you went to bed that night?
Yeah, no, I watched the game. Obviously, there was a lot of people talking about a St Helens derby final. And I was so happy for Chizzy when he beat Van Gogh, and we actually... I met up with him in the hotel later on that day, and just had a chat with him, and we both said, listen, we'll give it our best to get to the final. We're both really good friends on and off the hockey, and yeah, I think it meant both a lot to both of us. Obviously, he'd not been in the best form, and I'd not been to a quarterfinals for a long time, so yeah, I think we were both happy for each other, and it would have been great to play him in the final, but there was a big Welsh guy in my way, and he had a 2 times world champion in his way.
Yeah, the big Welsh guy, Gerwyn Price, the next night, and you two serve up a ton-plus finishing clinic. 5 from you, 8 from him, 13 in total, a record for a game in the World Championship. When you're in a game like that, when the big finishes are being taken out so regularly, does that ramp up the pressure when you're seeing your opponent left on a finish that you've got to take whatever you've got?
Definitely, yeah, and obviously I think... He missed a few opportunities. I think they took a crucial 118 out to win a set. And in the back room, obviously, when you come off stage, I seen how deflated that made him. And I actually thought to myself, I've got him here. And as soon as I thought that, I started pushing and pulling my darts, and just made myself a bit too much tense, trying to close the game out. And listen, Gerwyn Price he's number 1 in the world now, and he's number 1 for a reason. He's been the most consistent on the floor and on the TV over the last few years, and he thoroughly deserves that title. And listen, I hope me and Gerwyn Price have a lot more matches on the stage, because I love playing him. I played him in Blackpool as well, where I got one over on him, and I think there's a lot of a lot of potential for a lot of blockbuster games between me and him.
Definitely. Well, we'll finish up looking ahead to the rest of the year, but I've got to mention as well, you being one of the products of the BDO system, do you pay much attention to what's going on below the PDC? Of course, we've now got the UKDA running the county system, WDF and MAD looking to offer opportunities to the BDO, sadly no more. What's your take on where darts is heading below the 128 on the tour?
I don't really pay that much attention, to be honest. I used to when it was the BDO, and obviously I still had a lot of friends there, but a lot of those friends now have played in Q School and come over, and yeah, it's a sad state of affairs to see what happened in the BDO. But I seen them one and signed years before when I made my decision to join the PDC, so to say, and yeah, it was devastating for me to see it fall, and just some of the things that happen, but I've got to concentrate on my future, on what I'm doing in the PDC, and I can't take my eye off the ball for 1 second, because if you give someone your finger, they'll take your hand, and there's so many good players here. If you take your focus off what you're doing for a second, then it can affect you, and I've just got to keep 100% focused on what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm in the Masters now, so I'll have this week off. I'll probably get back on the practice board over the weekend or Monday, and I'll absolutely be ready for the Masters. I can't wait. I've got a tough first round match there in Joe Cullen to play Gerwyn Price again, which he said is going to be blockbuster games. So I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing. The form's great. The confidence is massively high, and listen, I'll be floating around venues this year off the back of what I've done so far, and I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Well, you touched on the Masters there, a boost for you, and the players ranked 17th to 24th yesterday when we're talking the PDC expanding the field in the Masters to the top 24. Did that catch you a little bit by surprise, or did you have any idea that was going to happen?
No, totally by surprise. Obviously, when they were doing the Premier League picks the other week, and I think they picked 9 out of the 10, so they've left the space open. So that gives me the opportunity again to showcase my talents, show what I'm capable of. If I have a big run in that and the UK Open, who knows, that 10th spot may be mine, or there's a lot of great players who are fighting for that spot. But I can't let that take my focus away from everything else that I'm doing, the work that I've worked hard at home to achieve where I've got in the Wales, and I just got to keep building on that, forget about the Premier League for now, and just keep doing what I'm doing, and you will eventually get rewarded for doing what you're doing.
Definitely. Well, lastly, before we let you go, we stumbled across the video of you singing on stage at the Euro Tour a few years ago, the Spandau Ballet Gold. Hopefully we're going to get fans back at some point this year. Any plans to sing again on stage in 2021?
Oh, you never know. You never know. It's yeah, I totally forgot about that video, to be fair. There was 5,000 fans in the venue that day, and that was an incredible feeling. It was a bit of a surprise because I'd done a karaoke somewhere, and they had Tony Hadley signed a calendar for me. So obviously I got that, and then I had to sing in front of 5,000 people on stage. Everyone joined in, which made it easier. But yeah, they're moments that I'll never forget. I'm just a normal lad, like I've always said. No matter what I do in darts, I'll still be normal. If you see me in a supermarket, or you see me in a sports store or a shop or anywhere, you just come up to me and you can speak to me. I'm a normal guy, and I pride myself on being that normal person.
Good man. Well, Stephen, always appreciate your time. Congratulations again on a brilliant couple of weeks that you've had, and we wish you all the best for the Masters and for the rest of 2021.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
Support for the weekly Dartscast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ADONIS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code ADONIS. Your balls will thank you. Now, if you excuse me.
Thanks again to Stephen for joining us. Now, a few more questions on the World Championship that we've just seen, and we've just heard from one of the beaten semi-finalists, Stephen Bunting. But who do you think will look back on this tournament and see it as a missed opportunity the most to become world champion in the PDC?
I mean, there's quite a few answers you can put, and I don't want to say everyone because I'll be nice and leave at least one or two people for you. So I'll limit it to 2 players, one obvious answer and one very non-obvious answer. The obvious answer is Dave Chisnell, because what we saw from him in that quarterfinal against Michael van Gerwen is 5 sets, 22 legs of the best darts we have ever seen in a World Championship. You know, he averaged 107. You almost feel like he let Van Gogh in a couple times. He didn't make many mistakes, but he did make some, because that could have easily been 15-4 or 15-3 in legs, how dominant he was. But he let Van Gogh in a couple sets, and it kept the sets going. But then he just lifted his game and hit the right shot at the right time. And Van Gogh didn't even have a set dart in that match. And okay, Van Gogh was nowhere near his best. Van Gogh was off in that match, but I don't think it would have mattered. If Chizzy had kept that up, although if Van Gogh was on, maybe Chizzy wouldn't have kept that up. But if Chizzy had kept that up, Van Gogh didn't have a chance in that. And he did. Then he was just nowhere to be seen against Gary Anderson. Okay, he only lost at 6-3, but that scoreline's a little bit flattering. Gary wasn't great in that match, but he was better than Chizzy for pretty much all 9 sets. When you play like he did in that quarterfinal, and for him to not go on and win the world title, it has to be a missed opportunity, because he had the single best match in this tournament, and that is not fairly debatable. It's not even close. And then he just doesn't turn up in the semifinal. The non-obvious answer is the person who came the closest to putting out Gerwyn Price, Brendan Dolan, in the 3rd round. Both of them left on 72, and I didn't think about this one, but thinking back, this might have been the checkout of the year. I almost want to change my nomination, because that 72 that Gerwyn Price took out to win that match in the last leg shootout is every bit as good as the checkout that Peter Wright had in the 2nd round last year against Noel Malakdem. Might not have been as big as a number, but it's as big in the context of that event, because the way Brendan Dolan was playing, you have to think he would have taken out the 72 if Price had missed. Who's to say Brendan Dolan doesn't kick on from there? Because Brendan Dolan was looking really, really good in that match, and looking really, really confident. And he only would have looked better having beaten Gerwyn Price from that. I don't think he would have had a regression like Chizzy did. He could have done the same against Mervyn King. And maybe we're talking Brendan Dolan as the world champion. It's a bit out of left field to be saying that, but there's really no reason to think he couldn't have kicked on, especially how much he's improved over the last 2 years and how good he looked against Price in that match. This was an opportunity. He shouldn't be looking back disappointed on it. He should look back proud that he pushed the world champion this far. But on the other side of the coin, it could have been Brendan Dolan, and it might sound far-fetched, but I really don't think it's as far-fetched as it sounds.
Probably a name that I didn't expect you to say for that answer, but you make a great case for him. And as you say, if he'd have got a shot at that 72, you'd have said he'd at least get a shot at double tops if he'd have gone the 16 route, or he'd have got 2 darts at double 12. And yeah, we could have been talking about Brendan Dolan through to the last 16. Okay, there's still a lot of work to do from that stage, but against Mervyn King, both of those players would have fancied getting to the quarterfinals and beyond. And good to see Brendan Dolan as well continuing to have that resurgence in his career. We saw him win a title not so long ago, a year, 2 years ago, and he's still working on his game. He's sped up a little bit. He's working on things all the time, but as you say, good to see him still pushing for something there. I've got to start with Dave Chisholm. I know you started with him, but the MVG curse, it carries on. We saw last year any player that knocked out Michael van Gerwen in a straight knockout event on TV, they went out the very next round. Johnny Clayton in the Masters, Simon Whitlock 3 times the World Match Play, World Grand Prix, Grand Slam, Glenn Durrant the World Series Finals, Ian White the European Championship, and we kicked off 2021. The curse continues. Dave Chisholm knocking out Michael van Gerwen, ending a 27-game run on TV without beating the former world number one, I should say now, but world number one on all those occasions, ending that 27-game run with an outstanding performance to beat him 5-0, 107 average. And yeah, the game, it felt closer than a 6-3 in some ways. In some other ways, though, it kind of felt like Dave Chisholm was hanging on in that game, and it just took a surge from Gary Anderson to win the last couple of sets to get over the line to 6-3. But he'll be bitterly disappointed. I think, okay, it was his first PDC World Championship semi-final, but when you knock out the tournament favourite like that and you come back the following night, you're kind of hoping that, right, let's do this again tonight, do this again the following night, and I could be world champion. So I think Dave Chisholm will be the most disappointed. Aside from that, maybe give a mention to the handicapper's nightmare, Darryl Gurney. You mentioned his World Cup partner there that pushed Gerwyn Price to a sudden death leg. Darryl Gurney did exactly the same. He came back from 2-0 down, 4-2 down, got it back to 4-all. They went all the way to that final leg, just fell short in that final leg, but if he gets over the line, gets to the semi-finals, he'll be fancying his chances of going all the way over the final 2 games. But yeah, I think looking back, okay, you mentioned Gary Anderson, the finalist, but Dave Chisnall's got to be the one looking back thinking that is a huge missed opportunity to become world champion.
What a memorable world championship we've had, just missing the record for number of 180s, but other records fell. I think most 100-plus averages, probably most 10-plus finishes. But what are the moments you'll remember most from the last 3 weeks at Alexandra Palace?
There's going to be quite a few, and I think regardless of what happened in this tournament, it was going to be one that we were always going to remember, because we had the first night with the fans back here in the UK for the first time in 8 or 9 months, and then the following day we were back behind closed doors with the different setup for the venue, the long walkway for the walk-ons, no fans in the building. It was very different, but as we've said a lot on this show over the last 6 months, since we've seen televised darts come back, the players stepped up to it. They produced the drama on the stage, and for a lot of times we didn't really worry about there being no fans there, because the players were serving up the drama that we're used to watching when we watch the darts. But lots of great moments. I think one of the big ones you'll remember, of course, is the champion Gerwyn Price, a bit like 12 months ago, Peter Wright winning his first world championship. When you see players win that world title for the first time, those are the moments that stick with you when you think about that player and you think about the world championship. So Gerwyn Price going all the way will be one that sticks with me. But I think there's a lot throughout the tournament, and we spoke about it last week when we spoke about the change in the format this year with the no tie break, it going down to a 5th leg. That was the final leg of the match if it goes to a final set. So we've seen a lot more games this year than in previous years go to that final leg, sudden death leg, which I think we're hoping that we have the tie break back next year. But in terms of drama, I think this has probably been one of the most dramatic world championships. We've had a lot of close finishes throughout the tournament, even going as far as the quarterfinals. You saw a quarterfinal go to that sudden death leg, the one I mentioned with Gerwyn Price and Daryl Gurney, but games even going right back to the first round, the second round, players that the sudden death, it worked for them in one round, and then the following round it didn't work for them. So you're thinking Gabriel Clemens knocks out Peter Wright in a final leg, and then the next round goes to a final leg and misses those match starts against Krzysztof Ratajski, and then Joe Cullen hitting that 100 check out the 2 tops to finish it off against Johnny Clayton in a final leg, and then the following round gets beaten by Michael van Gerwen in a sudden death leg. So lots of drama, lots of great finishes to games, which I think is something that we'll always remember from this year's Ali Pali.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not start with Gerwyn Price lifting the trophy, and it's how close it could have been to something different with those 11 mismatched darts. If Gary Anderson, who missed a slew of darts himself at those legs, especially to get it back to 6-4, could have flipped the other way, but Gerwyn Price getting over the line and becoming world champion. The emotion when he crossed the line in the semifinal, which I'll get back to in a second. We'll remember exactly like with Peter Wright last year. But I want to get back to that semifinal with Stephen Bunting, because the finishing in that match is the best I've ever seen. It's not just that there were a record 13-plus, 10-plus finishes in that match, including a record equaling 8 by Gerwyn Price, but it's the fact that almost all of those were in pressure situations. 5 of the 13 10-plus finishes were with the opponent waiting on a double, and another 3 with them waiting on a single-double combination. So that's 8 of the 13 where you can say they had to go because the opponent was on a 70 or 65+% shot to win the leg. So to perform like that under pressure so many times over a match of that length is unparalleled in darting history. And that's not hyperbole. It is unparalleled. It's easy to forget that because of how many great matches there were. And then also, Chizzy's match against Van Gerwen, which we talked about earlier. Also that 72 by Gerwyn Price against Brendan Dolan that we both talked about. I think you can't forget. But then even going back, another good performance from really all of the North Americans, which shows the improvement in quality from the North American contingent after what would have been a very dark decade or so for North American darts. And we had Danny Baggish on not that long ago. We had him on over the Christmas break, and he talked about what the CDC's been doing. We saw how that paid off with him making the last 16. But then also good performances from all 4 qualifiers. Beyond that, there's There's just so many highlights. This was one of the best World Championships, even though it was missing out on some of that atmosphere being played behind closed doors. But at the end of the day, what you're going to remember for the longest time is Gerwyn Price lifting the title, becoming world champion, becoming world number one for the first time. And that's really what you should remember most of all.
Now let's move on to our next guest on this week's show, and it is with a former tour card holder in the PDC and the man who's been doing commentary for German TV during the World Championship, Robert Marijanovic.
I'm joined today by the Rob star, Robert Marijanovic. Robert, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us, and plenty to discuss, and we'll start right now with the action going on at Alexandra Palace. You're part of the Sport 1 commentary team in Germany. What have you made of the tournament so far as of the time of recording? We're entering the semifinals later today.
I think we have a lot of surprises. I mentioned before the tournament we will have a semi-finalist which no one expected. So now we have two of them which no one expected. It is the perfect ending for a crazy year, even in darts. So I'm really surprised about Chizzy and Bunting, of course, as everybody in the scene. But I loved the thing how the PDC has done it. So the organization is good. All players was there. We had only one COVID-19 positive case. So I thought it would be more, to be honest. But everything went well. And I'm really surprised how good it looks on the TV without the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. And got to mention Gabriel Clemens, the German number one, knocking out the reigning world champion Peter Wright in a last leg decider. You tweeted that you lost at least 1 year of your life watching that, but was it worth it, and how special of a moment was it?
I was really nervous, and I was screaming and praying even. I don't know what I did, everything. But I was... To be honest, I am not surprised that he is now has a little breakthrough. I know him since we started. I know him for longer, but we started in 2018 traveling. We were roommates. We were practice partners. I know what he can do, and it was just a matter of time that he can bring his practice game on the stage. And I was really happy for him. I was really happy for him and his girlfriend Lisa, who supports him nearly every day in every case, in everything he does with the traveling and all the hotel bookings and everything. And I loved the moment, and it was a nice evening for me, and I will talk about that evening a long time from now.
Unfortunately, the next night or 2 nights later, it went the other way. Another last leg thriller before losing out to Christoph Ratajski in the last 16. What was that like, seeing a game so dramatic at the end?
I mean, it was really, to be honest, horrific. I don't know if this is the right word. At the end, I was really... I felt sorry for Gabriel, but no darts player wants to lose a game like this. Some people say maybe it would have been better that Christoph made a match start earlier, so the drama wouldn't be so big as it was. But it was really not nice to watch. But I know Gabriel now for a long time, and I know he was angry at this evening. He was I don't know, not satisfied with his performance. But I know him so good that I know he will go back home, think about the fact that he lost, why he lost, and try to prevent that in the future.
We'll continue talking about Germany for a second. We're used to seeing Germany bring over thousands of fans. Obviously, this year that was not possible. But what have the viewing figures been like? Have the fans in Germany been just as passionate, even though they can't attend?
Oh yeah, viewing ratings were really perfect. I think the game between Nico Kurz and Gabriel Clemens was about 1.5 million viewers in Germany, which is really great for darts, for a sport that has not really a German hero. And the second game of Gabriel against Peter was even bigger. I think over 2 million people. 2 million people. And again, Christoph Ratajski, also 2 million people watched the game. I'm not sure now about the numbers, but it was really huge. So it was a new record for a last 16 match on the television in Germany. And it was in every major news channel. He was mentioned and the World Championships. And I think he made a good promotion. He Max Hopp and Nico Kurz also, they made a good promotion for German darts to get more fans on our side and to let the people see what is so fascinating about the sport.
Now, you used to represent Croatia, which we'll come on to in a couple questions, but Boris Korsmar had a great first year on the PDC Tour, especially the second half. What do you see as the future for darts in Croatia, and do you think it can get as big as it is in Germany?
No, I don't think so. They play a lot of soft tip darts. They have their soft tip heroes, as it is Boris for sure. It is a small country. It has only 4 million citizens living there. They have other major problems in their normal life, but I think football, handball, and tennis, these are the sports that are really popular in Croatia. And I don't think that darts can get even close to this. But I'm happy to see that Boris switched from soft tip to steel tip now, as many other players also did, soft tip players, as Mansur did, as Jose de Sousa did, as Christopher Ratajski did it. So I think he has a bright future in the PDC, and I hope his bright future will help to grow the sports in Croatia.
I think that's the first time handball's been mentioned on the show. We've mentioned quite a few sports, but good to give a shout out to a sport that I actually enjoy playing but haven't in forever. Now, we have you on. We've talked about German darts. We talked about Croatian darts, but let's talk about you for a bit. We first saw you appear in PDC events as far back as 2007. What are your earliest memories, though, playing darts and getting into the sport?
My earliest memories are I wanted to try. I became a darts fan. I was a player a long time, but in 2005 or 6, when the broadcasting began in Germany from Sport 1 and they showed the PDC World Championships, I also became a fan of darts, and I was fascinated about all those big stars. And I saw that the PDC is coming to Germany near Frankfurt, and they're doing a Players Championship in Germany, and I suddenly register, and I wanted to play there. And my first opponent was Mervyn King, and I remember that I had to mark a game after that. I lost, and I had to mark the game, but then I realized that I never marked the game of steel tip darts in my life before. And I was a little bit nervous, asking about 12 people who can mark for me, and went away. That was my first memories. But since then, I fell in love with the PDC, with darts especially, and became a bigger fan year after year.
Always good when someone's more nervous to mark than to play. Now, you mentioned the World Championships, watching that got you into it. Now, at the end of 2012, you got to play in the World Championships for the first time, winning through the East European qualifier. What do you remember about your debut in the biggest tournament in darts?
I remember entering the hotel. That was the first big thing for me, coming into the Players Hotel, seeing all those big names. Phil Taylor was there, Barney was there. They were sitting in the lobby talking to each other, and I mentioned that, I realized that everybody was talking about darts, and I felt like I'm coming home, because lots of people there, everybody's talking only darts all day long, no other themes, and I loved it. And my second memory is I didn't know what to expect on the stage. My only plan was not hitting a 26, to be honest.
Now, a few months later in 2013, you made your World Cup debut in the PDC alongside Tonci Restovic, representing Croatia, and you made it to the quarterfinals. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was really great. I knew Tonci quite a while before, but we never had like a big contact to each other. But from this tournament on, we were big friends till this day now, and I really like him. And we spent holidays together. I visited him. He came to me. It was a great tournament for me. Especially, I played good till the quarterfinals. It was a great experience. It was an honor to represent one of your home countries. As you know, maybe I'm born in Germany, but my parents are from Croatia. I am blessed to have two homes in my heart, two countries that I love, and it was a great experience. And I don't know. I became addicted to those PDC tournaments, and that was the moment when I thought I want to go further and try to play another maybe major tournaments in the PDC, and it motivated me a lot to practice more.
Well, you did go on to play in the World Championships a few years later, and then followed that up the next month, winning a tour card after a great 4 days at the European Q School. What was the feeling when you found out you had won a tour card?
I was happy. Didn't know what to expect now, what was the plan, and I know when I won the tour card, or when I knew I will win the tour card as I think number 2 in the tour card order of merit, I talked to Gabriel, who also won his tour card on the last day, and we were talking and saying to each other, oh, this will be really complicated now, traveling, lots of costs, and then we decided to travel together to share the room, to save some money, everything. I didn't know what to expect, and to be honest, it is hard. The first couple of months were very hard for us because the planning and all those bookings and flights and everything, we didn't know nothing about it. But when the more we played, we loved it more. But the thing is, I think Gabriel fell in love with the tour. He's a good Players Championship player, and he became better and better. But for me, it was always getting a little bit tougher because I'm a home type of guy. I love my couch, I love my home, I love my house, I love my wife. It was tough for me, but it was a great experience, and never looking back.
So you mentioned that you're a home type of person. Have you made a decision on whether, assuming it happens, you'll go to Q School in 2021, or is that still up in the air?
I will go to the Q School, but this time it's a different situation. So I became a father 9 months ago, so my life has changed totally. Now the center of my life is my son, and that's the most important thing now for me. But I will attend this Q School, give it a go. But to be honest, I won't practice my ass off to get a tour card now a couple of weeks before or something. I will try my best. The plan is to participate in the European Tour qualifiers in Germany. That's the main plan. But if a tour card happens, it happens. So you never know.
Well, congrats on the child. Just a couple more questions. You mentioned those European tours. 2020 was, of course, a quieter year for you and a lot of the players because of the pandemic. But you still made it to a couple of those European tours. How good was it to get back on the stage after the long break?
Oh, it felt great, especially after this hard year. I know many people suffered lots of more than me from the pandemic, especially lots of dart players I know, which are ranked between 33 and 64 maybe, who quitted their jobs maybe, and they didn't earn money or something. But for me personally, it was a great feeling to be back on the stage, because I still feel like I belong to the best players in Germany. That's my opinion from me, because I practice at home and I see my results and I know what I can do. I loved it, and I hope lots of more to come next year.
Yes, indeed. And one more question. Since you are on comms at the World Championships, you're a media expert now, and we have to get a prediction from you before you go. We're talking, as I said, before the semifinals at Ali Pali. But who do you think comes through tonight, and who do you see winning the Sid Waddell Trophy tomorrow?
In my opinion now, before the tournament started, I said the big three are my main favorites. So Gerwyn Price and Wright in this order. MVG and Wright are out of the tournament. So for me, to be honest, I don't see another winner like as Gerwyn Price. For me, he's the number one favorite by far. Gary Anderson, I don't know. Maybe maybe he gets back to his strongest game, but I can't see him beating maybe in a final with Gerwyn Price, beat him in a distance best of 13. I don't see it. But you have to say Gerwyn Price didn't had it easy in the tournament so far. I don't know how much power he has lost for the semifinals and maybe for the finals. I don't know. My heart says I want to see Gary Anderson winning this tournament, but my mind says I think it will be Gerwyn Price.
All right, Robert, thank you. Best of luck on commentary the next couple of days, and best of luck at Q School, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for letting me be part of this.
Thanks again to Robert for joining us, and let's talk a little bit about the Premier League. Of course, tonight when we're talking after the final of the World Championship, the players, 9 of the 10 players have been announced for the 2021 Premier League. Is going back to the 10 players. We've not got the challengers contenders format that we've had for the last couple of years. It's going to be starting around Easter time. Matt Porter said on the broadcast tonight, not the traditional February time. We've got Gerwyn Price, the newly crowned PDC World Champion, Michael van Gerwen, Peter Wright, Rob Cross, the top 4 getting in automatically. And then the 5 that have been announced so far: Gary Anderson, Glenn Durrant, Dimitri Van der Berg, Nathan Aspinall and Jose de Souza, with one more player, of course, still to be determined. But what do you make of the changes so far?
I think this is exactly what I thought it would be, and it shows that they're, at least after some time where they might not have been as consistent, at least now there are consistent criteria that will get you into the Premier League, assuming that there aren't too many players hit the criteria, and therefore you got the 9 in. You have the top 4 in the world, and that might be the only reason Rob Cross had gotten in. Gary Anderson had won the world title and moved up to number 4, or Dave Chisnell had won the semifinal to move into the top 4 yesterday. I don't know if Rob Cross would have gotten in. How that might have affected, would we have just had the 8 confirmed, or would someone else, maybe James Wade or Dave, well, obviously if Dave Chisnell got in the top 4, he would be there, but let's say if Gary Anderson had won the title, would Dave Chisnell have gotten in, would James Wade have gotten in, would Dirk Van Dijvenbode, or would Rob Cross still have been there, or would there have been 2 empty spots? We don't know, but they're being consistent. The top 4 get in, anyone who's won a major will get in. And that's probably the only reason Jose de Souza got in, not to take away from what he's accomplished, but overall he doesn't have the Premier League resume, but he did win the Grand Slam, and they're being consistent. He absolutely earned his spot there. And Dimitri, I don't know if he would have gotten in if he didn't win the World Match Play, but it's not, he would have still been on the short list of players, even if he had lost the final. And he was a player that we knew would eventually get there. He's now got there. Glenn Durrant, as the Premier League champion, had to get in. And I think Nathan Aspinall is the reigning Premier League runner-up. That hasn't always been the case, but I think it makes sense, especially otherwise he would have been the highest-ranked player left out. It's fair that he is there as well. That's 9. And there isn't a clear-cut 10th player. Wade made finals this year. That definitely should have him in the competition. Dave Chisnell didn't have the full year, but boy, that winning the World Championships definitely brought him into contention. Dirk Van Dijvenbode is more of an outside pick, but made the final of the World Grand Prix and also quarterfinal of the World Championship. He has to be in with a shout. Also Simon Whitlock, resurgent year. But none of them, you could say, had truly clinched that 10th spot. It was still up for debate. I like holding off. Let's see what happens in the Unibet Masters. Let's see what happens, maybe even at the UK Open. If that goes ahead long before the Premier League's able to start, we still don't know. Give the remaining contenders and other players as well, who we might not be naming, a chance to compete for it, especially since it's still going to be at least 3 months off before it starts. I like this decision. I think it was the right move. We'll see what happens. We'll see who earns it. You'll have to use a phrase I usually bring in later in the show, hang tight. But I think that was the right decision to have them hang tight for a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a fair move. And we've had the challenge, the contenders. They've been called different things over the last couple of years. We've seen some brilliant moments. The John Henderson, Michael van Gerwen game. Of course, Luke Humphries becoming the first of the players to win against one of the regular players. Balancieric drawing against the eventual champion Glenn Durrant during the league phase, and the crowds as well. But I guess really we spoke about it on the show when the Premier League came back. We had the 3 challengers play their final games behind closed doors, not with that big crowd, and you kind of felt like we're not going to see the challengers come back this year. And I guess another reason for that as well is because of the strength in depth, all the different players that have performed well on TV at stages various times during the year. Previous years we've had, you probably say maybe 9 or 10 players, especially last year. You look at it, I think the last spot really was between Glenn Durrant, Dave Chisnell, maybe even Daryl Gurney. I know he got in, but 8 or 9, 10 players going for them spots. This year, as you say, we've got a lot more players that are pushing for it. And before the final, I probably had those players down there. I'd Dimitri Van der Berg, Jose de Souza, I had those 2 down on there. Of course, there'll be the debutants. Dimitri's played as a contender before, but this will be the first time that he's played it full time. Jose, no previous Premier League experience, but I think, winning a big title like they did in 2020, they deserve to get that spot. After that, though, that 10th spot, that is the big one. Who's going to get it? And I think if Dave Chisnell would have made the final, he would have probably got it, but losing out in the semi-finals, I think it keeps it open for now. You've got Dave Chisnell. Stephen Bunting, of course, just got to the semi-finals, and we've seen over the last couple of weeks he's a very entertaining player to watch on TV, puts in some big finishes, big scorer. He's now playing back to that form that we've seen from 5-6 years ago. James Wade, of course, 2 TV finals. Dirk Van Dijvenbode has been a a real star in 2020. Simon Whitlock has produced some excellent runs. He's coming back. Mervyn King as well, getting to a TV final. Joe Cullen pushing Michael Van Gogh in so close. Daryl Gurney, who's missed out. Michael Smith as well. We've not mentioned him. There's a lot of players that will be thinking, if I can put something together over the next few months, have a big run on TV, that could get me in the Premier League. And it makes the Masters exciting as well, because you've got a lot of players in there that aren't in the Premier League. If they can get to a final or win the Masters, they put themselves right in pole position. So an added caveat for that event as well. So yeah, I'm happy with it, and hopefully we'll see some announcements in time about the Premier League when it's going to get going again. But again, I think that's sensible to push it back to later in the year, when hopefully we'll get closer to having some fans back as well. And we should mention as well, before we go, we didn't have a contest on the Low Six app, but we did make our picks for the quarterfinals. And Burton, congratulations to you, one of the tips of the year, tipping Dave Chisnall to beat Michael Van Gogh. So you get that one 3-2 in the end for that, and hopefully we'll have some more contests with Low Six during the year, of course, when the Masters comes up in a few weeks' time. And guys, if you want to get involved in that, download the PDC Picks app. 18 plus, UK residents only, T and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org. And should mention as well, we've got our weekly Dartscast awards. If you haven't seen on Twitter, we've got 17 different awards. We've all made our nominations, myself, you, Burton, and our producer Hannah. We've all put forward a nomination for each award. The fourth nomination will come from you, the listeners. So we'll pick one of those picks that you guys make to go into the voting as well, and all the votes will be done by you on who wins the award. So got till the end of the week if you want to get involved in that. We'll see who will be crowned our Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, Match of the Year, Tournament of the Year. We've got a lot of different awards, so if you want to get involved in that, go and check that out on our Twitter as well.
Well, there's only one who can win Legend of the Year, and that's the Challenge 4-7 semi-finalist Mark Walsh. But yes, thank you, everyone. Oh, I guess I should say first, anything else for this week?
Well, I think I basically covered it there, but as always, got to say thanks everyone for listening. This is our first show of 2021, so looking forward to what the year holds. I guess really this is the first year when we haven't got a full calendar to look ahead to. You mentioned it at the end of last week's show. We're not going to be looking ahead to a BDO World Championship or reviewing a BDO World Championship this year, so it might be a little quiet for us over the next few weeks, but we will have the awards to look into and announce the winners for those, and then of course looking ahead to the Masters at the end of January as well. So few weeks of quiet time for now, but we'll certainly be back very soon.
Yeah, and it is a little weird not having a BDO World Championship to look forward to, not just, because it's been going on for over 4 decades, but for us, I believe our trial episode, which I wonder if I still have saved on my old computer, we were recorded right after the BDO World Championship to just work out some kinks and make sure we knew what we were doing. Obviously, I don't think either of us knew what we were getting into back then. And I wouldn't want to go back and listen to it, even if I still have it, because I'm sure the quality, at least I hope the quality has improved substantially over the last 4 years. For those who have been with us since the beginning, thank you so much. I'm excited for Series 5 to get underway whenever it does get underway. And hopefully things getting back to normal for those who have joined anytime in the 183 episodes that have come since our first episode. We hope you stick around for at least 182 more. But for Alex Moss, I am Burton DeWitt, thanking you for listening. I don't know if we'll be back next week, but we'll be back fairly soon, because even if the season has a delay, there still is the Unibet Masters that I think we'll go ahead and we'll have to have our award show. We'll just have to hang tight for a little bit until all that comes about.